Hello, my name is Jerren, and I am presenting to you Storytelling for Social Change. It was an idea created by some members of our community just talking about the social injustices that have been going on in our country. And we wanted to find a way to keep the conversations going. Through 25/8 Network, we have been able to have a platform to do so. We've brought together members of our community that have been affected by social injustice. We've gotten members of our community to kind of tell their stories, and we want to continue to have those conversations and for you to be able to put a face to the idea of social injustice. Discrimination happens, social inequality is real. We wanted to put faces to the stories that you hear every day. We want you to listen with an open heart and an open mind. Here are our stories. This is Storytelling for Social Change with Jerren.
Good afternoon, I'm Quinton Higgins. I'm here on behalf of Storytelling for Social Change. I'm a Hardin County school bus driver, been driving for about 10 years. I'm out here in the public quite a bit. I'm one of the survivors of the Carrollton bus crash here locally, happened about 32 years ago. Born and raised around here. So I'm just going to go into my first case of understanding that racism was still alive and active around here. Here's my story. Back when I was about 15 years old, right after I was involved in the Carrollton bus crash, I met a young lady. She is Asian but considered white. Got real close to her. We were friends for a lot of years, and the first time I met her father, I showed up on their doorstep. He called me the N-word and told me to leave. And at that time, because we grew up here in a military town, you don't really notice it because it's diverse around here. So I kept showing up because I was just a silly kid. But every time I showed up on the steps, he would call me just the most craziest names, the N-word, and just tell me to stay away from his daughter. So we kind of started dating behind the scenes because he had to hide it from actually both of our families. My father did not like white people as I was growing up because of his own stories. So skip ahead, about 19 years old, we actually started dating, and we're getting ready to get married, and had our first child at 20, and her father disowned her because our daughter was mixed. And so we, even then, didn't really understand it fully, so we just kind of let it roll off of us. And just still growing up, moving to Louisville, so hanging out up there, I got called sellout quite a bit because I was walking downtown Louisville with a white girl. So the first time it really kicked off in my head that this was a problem is we were in college, and we were at a restaurant, and it was myself, my wife, and her college roommate, and we're sitting there, and the waitress would not touch my plate, give me a drink or anything for like 10-15 minutes. I didn't notice it. My wife at the time, she was actually my girlfriend, but now my wife, she noticed it and she kind of went off and she put a stop to it. So that's the first time that I really realized, man, we are actually different. So skip ahead, another story that just, comes to my mind is, again, in college, we were coming home and I had sold a car to one of my friends in college from Louisville, but we had to come here to Hardin County to get it registered. Got up here through E-Town, and a cop pulled us over. He was driving the car I was selling, and I was behind him, and we got pulled over. He got pulled over. I stopped behind him. I got out of the car, and the cop immediately looked at me and just started kind of cussing me out and had his hand on his gun. You can just honestly tell he was treating me and my friend different. And again, I'm like, just get in the car, follow directions. And my wife at the time, our girlfriend, she got out of the car, again, realizing we're being treated different. So she had to handle that. So that kind of kicked off in my head to where it was like, I started being quiet a lot when we were around in public or around cops, or just making sure I was following rules and regulations, even though I shouldn't have to feel that way. So it was just little things like that growing up. And again, skip ahead, 1997, 96, we moved back here and bought a home. And I had a gentleman, and again, you don't really realize it's here until you actually start dealing with it. And even when you deal with it, because you've grown up here in a nice, diverse place, you don't really recognize it as much. Well, I was 26 when I bought my first home, and we have a relatively nice home. And I had a fence up in the back of my property, and there was a gentleman that lived in the back of my house. He was retired military, a lot older than me, and he kept coming up to every time I was back cutting the grass or something, he would walk up to the back of our house across the fence. I'm thinking he just wants to conversate, but he would always ask me a question, and it didn't click for like weeks. He would ask me stuff like, well, where do you work? And you don't mind stuff like that. And so I would tell him, chit chat like that. Then he would start asking, well, how much money do you make? And then I started to get aggravated because I'm like, dude, this is none of your business. So one day where I put a stop to it, he actually came out and told me, he goes, well, you shouldn't be able to afford a place like this. So I kind of went off on him and ended the conversation and told him to stop coming to my fence. The last story I kind of want to share is one that really angered me, because you just don't think that this stuff is still happening. I was going to buy a 1972 El Camino, and it was a car that was sitting here local, here in E-Town, on the main road, sat there for about a month, and finally got up enough money to go buy it. And a friend of mine, he was black, and he was actually married to an Asian lady. We pull up, gonna buy this car. The guy said, yeah, I'll sell it to you. I was gonna give him the cash, and he said his wife was a notary, and he said, well, she's not home, so why don't you come back? And he was being crazy, let me hold on to the money. I was like, no, dude, we can't do that. Well, my friend's wife got out of the car, and the minute this guy noticed that he was in an interracial marriage, he said, I don't want to do business with y'all. And it was evident of the reason he caught the eye contact between my friend and his wife. He noticed they were married. But he immediately said, nope, I can't do business with y'all. I don't want to. Please go on about your way. I got really upset because I'm like, dude, we were good until you seen her get out of the car. And my friend, he's like, Quinton, keep a level head and just calm it down, and these things happen. But that really, one, because I really wanted the car, but two, just the bluntness of knowing we were looked at because of our race, because my friend was in an interracial marriage, because that guy just did not want to deal with us. And side note to that story, I found out a few weeks later, he was actually a gentleman that knew my father. But his whole thing is, and this is another aspect of it, I hate to put it this way, but it just is this way. You'll have people that are in your face, and you're fine until you have to touch topics on that's what's going on in society. Then you actually see how different we all are. This gentleman knew my father. My dad's never had a problem with him. And then I explained to my father he was actually like this, and my dad, that threw him for a loop. My call to action is to really just to help serve this cause, to let people know that this is out here. It's not so much that you have to agree with us, or just, I'm okay if you disagree with me. I disagree with people all the time, but in order to start changing these things, we have to understand these things are out here. We have to start listening. You have to start putting the stories out. You have to start understanding why black people or minorities are upset about certain things that go on in our society. And just be willing to sit there and listen. And when you understand that, we shouldn't have to, understanding why, I have 3 daughters. I'm talking to my girls about what if I had a son, how different I would have to be. We shouldn't have to explain to our boys to not make certain movements. And just understanding that black men, white women, black women, white kids, black kids, we are different. We're having conversations with our kids that honestly white people do not have to have. And this is such a touchy subject because honestly, I don't think it's not necessarily people don't want to talk about it, but they don't want to realize this is something that's built into our country. So I just want to be able to start speaking about it and helping people understand why we are a certain way. Thank you for listening. This is Quinton Higgins, and I'm here for storytelling for social change.